George Orwell famously said that in times of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. And I was reminded of this when I saw the cold-blooded murder of Shireen Abu Akleh. The European Union said in a statement that it strongly condemns her killing, occurring as it did just days after World Press Freedom Day. This was an absolute travesty, and it also reminded me of another travesty which is still ongoing, and that is Julian Assange's continued imprisonment in Belmarsh prison. The UN Special Rapporteur on Torture described his treatment as a prolonged exposure to psychological torture, including extreme stress, chronic anxiety and intense psychological trauma. Shireen and Julian were two revolutionary truth-tellers who spoke truth to power. And those in positions of power, whether it was the Israeli forces or their US counterpart, cannot allow this to continue. And from all sides of this House, I've rightly heard criticism of the murder of Shireen Abu Akleh. We are united in our horror at Israel's actions, and we must now be united in our holding of apartheid Israel to account for their actions, because Israel is ignoring our outcries, and it is now on us to do everything in our power to mount international pressure on Israel so they can no longer ignore international condemnation. And the late great war correspondent Robert Fisk once said that a journalist's job is to be a witness to history, not to worry about themselves, but to try to get as near as possible in an imperfect world to the truth and get the truth out. We now must stand with these.
Julian Assange has told the truth about what the US was up to in Afghanistan, in Iraq, about Guantanamo Bay, and about their war planning, their gaming, and all the rest of it, and exposed the truth about so much. Julian Assange actually speaks for all of us. He is our voice of humanity. So do everything you can to support Julian Assange.
There's so much more to say, and you can help more people hear it by sharing this video and boosting this platform with likes and comments and subscriptions and thanks.
And today, we mourn the death of Shireen Abu Akleh, a journalist from Al Jazeera, killed, shot in the head by Israeli occupying forces on the West Bank, where she was reporting on the lives of Palestinian people. She follows, sadly, many others that have been killed as a result of that occupation. Today, our sympathies, our solidarity with her and her family, but also with the Palestinian people. The occupation must end. It cannot go on. It is not sustainable. Outside the hall here, when we come in, I think there's a wonderful exhibition there on the walls to the side, which is Global Voices for Julian Assange. Julian Assange told the truth about the complicity of our countries in the behaviour of the US and others around the world, and revealed the truth. He took refuge in the embassy, the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and is now in a maximum security prison. A maximum security prison for somebody who hasn't been convicted of anything. And if the British Home Secretary decides to send him to the USA, then she will be consigning him to 175 years of imprisonment in a maximum security prison. Media around the world seem bit nervous about getting too involved in the campaign about Julian Assange. I say this to all of our friends in the media. There, but for the grace of God, go all of you. He has told the truth about things. That is what investigative, real journalism is about. It's designed and should be to make life uncomfortable for people in office and people in power. I know that. That's right. That's what democracy is about, challenging people. Julian challenged, so they put him in prison. Release Julian Assange!
It's the First Amendment because our founders knew that freedom of speech and freedom of the press are absolutely essential for the functioning of a democracy. Without a free press, we do not have an educated electorate, an informed electorate, or an empowered electorate.
It prosecution of Julian Assange violates the First Amendment right to free press. If Assange's work with Manning is criminalized, this would open the door for any investigative journalist to be prosecuted for their standard work. If he is charged under the Espionage Act, a similar legal case could be built against any journalist who reports unflatteringly on U.S. national security. Although he published evidence of war crimes, torture, surveillance, corruption, and more, no one in the U.S. government has ever been held legally accountable for such exposures. Merrick Garland must drop this unconstitutional extradition.
That's why we're here. Merrick Garland, who's inside, I hope he can hear me, is the top law enforcement official in the United States of America.
This prosecution also has serious violations of due process and right to a fair trial. Assange was surveilled by the CIA while meeting privately with his lawyers. Assange was not able to sufficiently access his lawyers in prison or read trial documents. He was kept in a glass box and not allowed to speak with his lawyers during his own trial. The key witness for his indictment for hacking admitted to lying and fabricating evidence against Assange. The UN Special Rapporteur on Torture concluded that Assange is a victim of torture at the hands of the UK. The UN Working Group on Arbitrary Detention concluded that he is the victim of arbitrary detention. And the International Bar Association's Human Rights Institute condemned his mistreatment during the extradition trial. This trial is a sham, an embarrassment, and has to be thrown out.
Barack Obama knew better than to prosecute this case, which has been in the works for a long time. And the reason that Barack Obama said that he did not go forward with this case was because prosecuting Julian Assange under the Espionage Act would establish grounds for prosecuting everyone else. The New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian, most other major journals also published the findings that Julian Assange made public.
If you believe in the truth, if you believe in journalism, then you must support dropping these charges against Julian Assange. This man has been tortured for years, and it's not just an attack on Julian Assange, it is an attack on every journalism student that is graduating right now.
We need to have dialogue, we need to have information, and we need to have an informed and empowered electorate. End the prosecution of Julian Assange and end his extradition. You can do that, Merrick Garland, today. We urge everyone to help deliver that message to him if you can. Thank you so much.
Not only should Julian Assange be freed, he should be compensated. The US and the UK should compensate him for $500 million for all the wrongs they've inflicted. This should be done not only to right the wrongs against Julian Assange, but to send a message: don't interfere with the freedom of the press.